The Haunted Rice Field, Part 1, The Curse Begins. Willow Hollow was a small, quiet village surrounded by miles of lush rice fields. Among them was Golden Field, the pride of the community. It was said that the rice from this land had a fragrance unmatched by any other, a gift from the ancestors who first cultivated it. But such a treasure, as it often happens, became the source of greed and tragedy. Sam Diligent was a hard-working farmer, known for his honesty and dedication. His small plot in Golden Field had been passed down for generations, and he tended to it with care, believing it to be sacred. But Sam's land had caught the eye of Tom Greedy, the wealthiest landowner in the village, a man infamous for his insatiable hunger for more land. One day, Tom approached Sam as the golden stalks swayed in the warm breeze. With a sly smile, Tom extended an offer. "Sam, my friend, sell me this little plot of yours. I'll make you rich beyond your dreams." Sam wiped his brow and shook his head, his voice firm but polite. "This land isn't for sale, Tom. It belongs to my family's legacy." Tom's smile faded, replaced by a sneer. "Legacy won't feed you. Don't be foolish, Sam. Take my offer while you can." But Sam stood his ground. Furious, Tom vowed to make him regret his decision. Over the weeks that followed, mysterious misfortunes plagued Sam's farm. Irrigation channels were blocked, tools went missing, and strange rumors spread about Sam being cursed. The villagers began to avoid him, leaving Sam to toil alone. One stormy night, Sam ventured out to repair a broken dike that threatened to flood his field. The rain fell in torrents, and lightning lit up the sky. By morning, Sam was found lifeless in the mud, his hands still clutching the tools he had used to protect his land. The villagers mourned his passing, but whispers of foul play spread. Some claimed it was an accident, others suspected Tom's hand in it. Sam's wife Linda and their children left the village soon after, abandoning the farm. But Golden Field didn't stay silent for long. The land, once vibrant, turned barren. At night, eerie whispers and ghostly figures began to haunt the field, marking the beginning of a curse that would forever change Willow Hollow. Now of the Haunted Rice Field, Part 2, Whispers of the Dead. Golden Field became a place of dread. Where once golden stalks swayed in the breeze, now only barren earth stretched under a pall of silence. The villagers avoided it, crossing themselves whenever they passed by, but rumors began to spread about the strange happenings in the field. Whispers of voices in the wind, shadowy figures seen in the misty dawn, and the sound of footsteps in the dead of night filled the village with unease. Tom Greedy, however, refused to believe in ghost stories. He was delighted to claim Sam's land, now abandoned, adding it to his ever-growing empire. He declared, loud enough for the whole village to hear, "A field is a field. There's no such thing as curses." But the curse of Golden Field had other plans. At first, it was small things. Tom's prized rice began to spoil, rotting away in the granaries despite being freshly harvested. His workers complained of headaches and strange noises in the field. One by one, they quit, claiming they could no longer endure the oppressive air around the cursed land. Still, Tom dismissed it as superstition. One evening, as Tom walked through the field to inspect his property, the wind picked up, carrying with it an eerie voice. "Give it back, Tom." He froze, the hair on his neck standing up. He spun around, but the field was empty, save for the rustling stalks. He shook his head and muttered to himself, "Get a hold of yourself, it's just the wind." But the voice grew louder, echoing in his ears. "You took what wasn't yours." That night, Tom dreamt of Sam Diligent standing in the middle of Golden Field, his hands full of charred rice. Sam's eyes glowed faintly as he spoke in a voice that reverberated like thunder. "Return the land, Tom, or it will take everything from you." Tom awoke drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. But stubborn and greedy as ever, he dismissed the dream as guilt playing tricks on him. He vowed to show the village that he wasn't afraid. But the curse was only beginning. Over the following days, his rice fields burned inexplicably, his wealth dwindled, and his once confident demeanor turned to paranoia. Each night, the whispers grew louder, and each dream brought Sam closer. By now, even Tom couldn't deny that he was being haunted. The Haunted Rice Field, Part 3, The Reckoning. Tom Greedy's life unraveled faster than he could comprehend. The whispers from Golden Field followed him everywhere, even into his grand house at the edge of the village. Each night, He heard footsteps outside his bedroom window, growing heavier with every passing hour. One evening, fueled by a mix of fear and anger, Tom grabbed a lantern and stormed into the field, determined to face whatever was tormenting him. The air was cold, unnaturally so for a summer night, and a thick fog swirled around his feet. He shouted into the darkness, "I am not afraid of you! Show yourself, coward!" The field responded in a chilling silence. Then the wind picked up, carrying with it a faint echoing voice. "You don't belong here, Tom." The lantern flickered as Tom spun around, trying to find the source. His foot slipped, and he landed hard on his knees in a puddle. Looking down, he saw his reflection in the water, but it didn't mimic his movements. Instead, it grinned back at him with glowing red eyes. Tom scrambled to his feet, his breath coming in ragged gasps, and ran back to his house. That night, he locked every door and window, but it was no use. As he lay in bed, the sound of footsteps began again, this time pacing inside the house. A voice called out from the shadows, "Return the land, Tom. It's not yours to keep." The next morning, the villagers gathered outside Tom's house, drawn by the sound of his screams during the night. They found him sitting in the middle of his rice granary, surrounded by rotting stalks, mumbling incoherently. His once proud demeanor was gone, replaced by a hollow, terrified man. Without another word to anyone, Tom sold his remaining land and fled Willow Hollow. The villagers never saw him again, but whispers claimed he was haunted for the rest of his life. Golden Field, now completely abandoned, became a site of eerie fascination. Some villagers claimed to see a shadowy figure tending the land at night, carrying bundles of rice that shimmered like gold. Others heard faint voices calling out in the wind. The field belongs to those who honor it. The curse of Golden Field remained a chilling reminder of the price of greed, a story passed down through generations to warn against the perils of taking what does not belong to you. The Haunted Rice Field, Part 4, A New Beginning. Years passed, and Golden Field remained a desolate place. The villagers spoke of it only in hushed tones, warning their children never to wander too close. But over time, the story of Sam Diligent and the curse began to fade, becoming more legend than memory. One day, a young woman named Clara arrived in Willow Hollow. She was an outsider, a city girl with big dreams and a hopeful heart. She had heard about the abandoned field and decided to see it for herself. "If no one wants this land, maybe it's time someone gave it a second chance," Clara said confidently. The villagers warned her about the curse. Mary, the elderly tavern owner, pulled Clara aside. "Listen, dear, that field is cursed. Anyone who tries to claim it ends up, well, you've heard the stories." Clara smiled, her resolve unshaken. Maybe the field is waiting for someone who respects it. Armed with nothing but determination and a deep respect for the land, Clara began to work on the field. She cleared the overgrowth, repaired the broken dikes, and planted new rice. She worked from dawn to dusk, her hands blistered but her spirit strong. The first night. When the first harvest approached, Clara stayed late in the field. The moon hung low, casting a silver glow over the land. As she rested on a haystack, she heard it, the faint whispers in the breeze. "Why are you here?" Clara didn't flinch. Instead, she stood up and spoke softly into the night. "I'm here to care for this land, not take what isn't mine. I hope that's enough." The whispers stopped, replaced by a gentle rustling of the rice stalks. For the first time in decades, the field felt alive again. A test of worthiness. Over the next few days, Clara began noticing strange things. Her tools, which she left scattered at the end of the day, would be neatly arranged the next morning. The rice seemed to grow faster than it should, its golden hue returning. One evening, as she walked through the field, she thought she saw a figure in the distance, a man carrying bundles of rice. She called out, "Who's there?" but the figure vanished. Instead of fear, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. She whispered, "Thank you." The curse lifts. When harvest day came, the villagers gathered to watch. To their amazement, Clara's crop was the most vibrant and plentiful the field had produced in decades. Some swore they saw Sam Diligent's spirit watching from the edge of the field, smiling. The curse was lifted, not through fear or force, but by respect and care. Clara became a beloved part of the village, and Golden Field thrived once more, a symbol of renewal and the power of kindness. The Haunted Rice Field, Part 5, The Legacy Lives On. Years went by and Goldenfield flourished under Clara's care. The villagers, once skeptical, now revered her as a guardian of the land. The field had become a place of abundance, not just for crops, but for the spirits of the past who seemed to have found peace. Clara's deep respect for the land and the lessons she learned from the curse had turned the once dreaded field into a symbol of renewal. But as the seasons changed, the land began to whisper again. One crisp autumn evening, as Clara walked through the field, she felt a chill run down her spine. It wasn't the cold wind. There was something else, something familiar. The whispers that had once haunted Tom Greedy and Sam Diligent seemed to return, faint but persistent. Clara paused, listening carefully. "Clara, you've done well, but the land needs more." Her heart raced. The voice was gentle but firm, a voice that seemed to come from the earth itself. Clara knelt down, placing her hands on the soil, her fingers brushing the cool earth. "I've tried my best. What more does the land need?" she whispered. The wind rustled through the rice, and in the distance she saw a figure, a shadow in the moonlight, walking slowly across the field. It was Sam Diligent, his figure ghostly yet peaceful, his eyes glowing faintly. He stopped and turned to her, his face soft with gratitude. "You have honored my legacy, Clara, but there is one last task for you." Clara stood up, feeling a deep sense of connection with the spirit of Sam. "What is it?" she asked. Sam's ghostly form seemed to shimmer. "The field has been healed, but it must never be forgotten. Teach the villagers what it means to live in harmony with the land. Tell them of the curse and of the respect it takes to keep it at peace. The land must never again be treated with greed." As Sam's figure faded into the mist, Clara felt a weight lift from her heart. She knew what she had to do. A legacy of respect. The next morning, Clara called a village meeting. She shared the story of Sam Diligent, of the curse, and of how the land had healed through respect and care. The villagers listened in silence, feeling the gravity of the message. From that day forward, Goldenfield was no longer just a place to grow rice. It became a reminder of the importance of honoring the earth, of respecting the gifts it offers, and of understanding that greed would always bring suffering. Clara, now an old woman, continued to care for the field, passing on the wisdom of the land to the younger generations. The field thrived, its golden rice a symbol of balance and prosperity. The curse, once so powerful, was now nothing more than a distant memory, but its lesson lived on. Goldenfield, forever tied to the legacy of Sam Diligent, remained a place of peace and abundance. A reminder that the true wealth of the land lies not in taking, but in giving. The Haunted Rice Field, Part 6, The Return of the Curse. As the years passed, the villagers of Willow Hollow prospered, their lives intertwined with the bounty of Goldenfield. Clara, now an elderly woman, had become the heart of the village, known for her wisdom and unwavering dedication to the land. Under her stewardship, the curse of the field seemed like a distant memory, a cautionary tale passed down from generation to generation. But one fateful day, a new family arrived in the village. The Martins, a wealthy family from the city, had heard of the village's success and the legend of Goldenfield. They were eager to claim the land for themselves, to build a sprawling estate that would rival the wealth of any neighboring town. They approached Clara with their offer, confident in their ability to bring even greater prosperity to the area. "Clara," Mr. Martin said with a smile, "I've heard so much about your work here, but it's time for this land to be put to its full potential. We will invest in it, grow it, and make it even more successful. I'm sure you'll benefit from the profits as well." Clara's eyes narrowed as she listened. She had seen this kind of ambition before, only to know it would lead to ruin. She hesitated, her old hands tightening around her cane. "This land is not for profit," she replied, her voice steady but firm. "Goldenfield has a spirit, a history. It cannot be bought or sold. It must be cared for, with respect and gratitude." Mr. Martin scoffed at her words. "Respect and gratitude are all well and good, but in the real world, Clara, money speaks louder. We're offering you a chance to make this place truly valuable." Clara stood silent, looking out over the golden rice field. The breeze whispered through the stalks, as though the land itself was warning her. But she couldn't stop them. They were too determined, too blind to the lessons of the past. That night, Clara had a dream. Sam Diligent appeared before her once more, his form faint and shimmering in the moonlight. His eyes, once filled with gratitude, now burned with sorrow. "You must stop them, Clara," he said softly. "The curse, it will return. The greed of men will awaken it. It's only a matter of time." Clara awoke with a start, her heart heavy. She knew that the curse of Golden Field had not been truly broken. It had only been dormant. And now, the land was once again in danger. A warning ignored. The Martins ignored Clara's warnings, continuing their plans to modernize the field. They tore down the old structures, replacing them with grand buildings and machinery. At first, things seemed to go well. The rice grew, the harvests were plentiful, and the village began to buzz with excitement at the new changes. But it didn't take long before strange occurrences began once more. Workers reported hearing strange noises at night, whispers in the wind, footsteps that seemed to follow them. Then came the crop failures, the tools that went missing, the eerie feeling that something was wrong. The once thriving rice field began to wilt, and the profits that Mr. Martin had promised began to dwindle. The curse had returned, stronger than before. And this time, it wasn't just the land that was at risk. It was the very soul of the village. The Haunted Rice Field Part 7, The Final Reckoning. As the days passed, the signs of the curse became undeniable. The rice in Golden Field, once golden and bountiful, now withered and turned a sickly yellow. Strange, ominous winds swept through the land, and shadows moved unnaturally across the fields, even under the brightest sun. The Martins' grand plans began to unravel as the field refused to yield anything but barren soil. Despite their growing unease, Mr. Martin remained defiant. He refused to believe in superstition and blamed the village's old ways for the failure. But his wife, Margaret, was not so sure. Late at night, she would hear soft whispers near the edge of the field, voices that seemed to call her name. The once perfect rows of rice twisted into strange patterns, as if the land itself was rebelling. One evening, as Margaret walked alone through the field, she came to a stop near the centre. The air felt thick, heavy with an energy she couldn't explain. She looked down and saw something strange in the soil, a small, tarnished piece of gold, glinting faintly in the fading light. As she picked it up, a cold gust of wind whipped around her, and a voice called out, sharp and clear, "You've taken what isn't yours." Terrified, she dropped the gold and stumbled backward, her heart racing. In the distance, the figure of Sam Diligent appeared, his form now more solid, his eyes burning with an intensity that spoke of deep, unresolved anger. "You've disturbed the balance of the land," Sam said, his voice low and sorrowful. "And now you will pay the price." Margaret ran back to the house, trembling, but it was too late. The curse had already begun its work. The next morning, the Martins' house was found in ruins, the rice fields completely consumed by dark, twisted vines that crept across the land like fingers reaching from the earth. The villagers, who had watched from afar, finally understood the weight of Clara's warnings. They gathered in silence as the Martins fled Willow Hollow, never to return. Golden Field was again abandoned, the land reclaiming its power, its whispers fading into the wind. Clara, now frail with age, stood at the edge of the field, her eyes soft with regret. She had done everything she could to prevent the curse's return, but greed had once again awakened it. Sam's spirit appeared to her one final time, his face peaceful. "You tried, Clara. The land will heal, but only for those who understand its true value." As the years passed, Golden Field slowly regained its vitality. The rice returned, but so did the lessons of the past. The villagers, humbled by the events, vowed never to repeat the mistakes of those who came before them. The field, sacred once more, became a symbol of respect, and the tale of the Martins was a reminder that greed would always be the death of harmony. And so, Golden Field endured, a living testament to the power of balance between man and nature. The Haunted Rice Field, Part 8, A New Legacy. Years passed and Golden Field, now healed, became a place of reverence in Willow Hollow. The villagers, humbled by the events that had unfolded, treated the land with care and respect. Clara, although older and weaker, continued to tend the field, passing on her wisdom to the younger generations. She had lived through the storm of greed and curse, and she knew now more than ever, that balance between nature and humanity was sacred. The younger villagers, once skeptical of the old tales, had learned to appreciate the lessons hidden in the stories of Sam Diligent, Tom Greedy, and the Martins. They worked the land with care, always mindful of its power and the price that came with greed. One day, as Clara walked through the field with a young girl named Eliza, who had become her most trusted apprentice, Clara stopped and gazed out over the golden rice swaying gently in the wind. Eliza looked up at her, sensing the weight of the moment. "You know, Clara," Eliza said, "I always wondered if the curse was real. But now, after everything, I understand. The land needs to be respected. It's not just about growing rice, is it?" Clara smiled, her eyes soft and wise. She had seen this moment coming, had known that the future would rest in the hands of those who understood the land's true nature. "No, Eliza," Clara replied gently. "It's never just about the rice. It's about the legacy we leave behind, the respect we show to the earth, and the balance we maintain. The land teaches us everything if we're willing to listen." As the harvest season arrived, Golden Field stood as a shining example of prosperity born from respect and harmony. The villagers worked together, and this time there was no fear of the curse. The whispers in the wind were no longer warnings, but gentle songs of peace, carried from the past into the present. Clara, now frail but content, passed the mantle of stewardship onto Eliza, knowing that the future of Golden Field was in good hands. The curse, long gone, had become a part of the land's history, a reminder of the past, but not its future. The legacy lives on. As Clara passed away in her sleep one peaceful winter night, the village mourned, but there was no fear. Golden Field had become more than just a rice field. It had become a symbol of the wisdom and strength of those who cared for it. And as Eliza stood in the field, now fully in charge, she could feel the spirit of Sam Diligent watching over her, a silent guardian of the land. The curse was gone, but the lessons of the past remained forever in the golden rice, swaying gently in the wind. The haunted rice field, the final chapter, a peaceful end. As the years went by, Golden Field continued to flourish under the stewardship of Eliza. The villagers no longer feared the land, they respected it, and in return, it gave them the abundance they needed to thrive. The stories of the curse and the greed that once plagued the field had become distant memories, whispered only to remind the younger generations of the past. Eliza, now the village's matriarch, had become a symbol of wisdom and harmony with nature. She often walked the fields, feeling the pulse of the land beneath her feet, listening to the wind as it carried stories from both the past and the present. She would always stop by the old stone wall that bordered the field, where Clara had once stood, teaching her how to listen to the earth. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the rice, Eliza stood at the edge of the field, her hands folded across her chest. She had lived a long and fulfilling life, but she felt that her time was coming to an end. The peace that had settled over Golden Field seemed to reach into her soul, and she knew it was time to pass on her knowledge, just as Clara had done before her. As she turned to walk back to the village, Eliza felt a presence beside her, a calm energy she knew well. In the distance, she saw the faint figure of Sam Diligent, his form glowing softly in the twilight. His presence, once full of sorrow, was now peaceful, a silent acknowledgement of the balance that had been restored. "You did it, Eliza," Sam's voice echoed in the breeze. "You've honored the land, just as it was meant to be." Eliza smiled, her heart full of gratitude. She had spent her life working in harmony with the land, and now it was at peace. She nodded towards Sam, her spirit at rest. The following morning, the villagers found Eliza in the field, her hands gently resting on the rice stalks, a serene smile on her face. She had passed away in the place she had loved most, a quiet end to a life well lived. A legacy forever etched in the land. After Eliza's passing, the village mourned, but there was no fear. The land, once tainted by greed and curse, had been healed by respect and care. The field thrived, a symbol of peace and prosperity, its golden rice glistening in the sunlight. The villagers continued the traditions passed down by Clara and Eliza, always working in harmony with the land. And so, Golden Field remained, a testament to the power of balance, a legacy passed down through generations. The whispers of the past, once filled with warnings, had transformed into a song of peace, carried through the wind. The curse had been broken, not through force, but through understanding, and the field flourished for generations to come. The haunted rice field, now simply known as Golden Field, stood as a reminder that the land's true wealth lies not in taking, but in giving and respecting the forces of nature. And with every season that passed, the legacy of Sam Diligent, Clara and Eliza lived on, forever etched into the earth and forever carried in